if you carry on doing this, it will never stop. You've got to take control of the situation.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello, my name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Joe is interviewing Richard Sams. Richard was introduced to us by Chaba Tote of show number 181. Richard is co-founder and CEO at MOHARA, a pre-seed to Series A startup and corporate venture builder. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Richard Sams of MOHARA. Welcome, Richard. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lovely. So start by telling us who you are, what you do, and crucially, where you do it.
So I am co-founder and CEO of MOHARA. We're an innovation delivery specialist. What that means is we essentially build tech product with startups, slightly later stage startups called scale-ups, SMEs looking to build non-core product, so away from their traditional business, and also corporates looking to mitigate any risks or seek out any opportunities to innovate with inside of their sector or a new sector that they fancy getting into.
And where do you do that?
So I'm currently in Brighton. I'm from here, but we have an office in London and also in Bangkok and Cape Town. We have just opened up in Dallas as well in the US, which is super exciting. But physically, I'm down in Brighton for this lockdown. Spend most of my time in London and have done for the last 4 or 5 years, as that's kind of where our headquarters are.
Yes, yeah. So what you describe as what you do had sort of elements where I thought, I know what he means. And then other bits when I was like, what does that mean? Yeah. So one of the questions I ask all my guests is sort of where it came from. And I sort of often sort of go, did you grow up saying this is what I'm going to do? Did you want to do this when you left school? I'm imagining not quite in the way that you've described it to me, even if that was sort of the plan. Tell me more about where this all came from.
So I actually was in education. So I was a teacher for 8 years. So I went straight from A-level into a 4-year degree at Brighton University in IT or computing and education. So I taught secondary school in the UK for 5 years, computing and IT, and then in New Zealand for a year, and then Thailand for 2 years. I just kind of over that period of time, teaching was fantastic. I loved the profession, I loved the people, and I thought it was, afforded me the opportunity to go and teach abroad and have that experience. But it just felt a little bit, maybe a little bit prescribed, or maybe I could see where the ceiling was. And I've always been quite entrepreneurial. So I wanted to look at ideas that how could I go and create something? How could I go and create legacy? And I knew technology through my degree, and I coded my first software when I was 6 years old on a BBC and built websites in the mid-90s. So I knew enough to be able to do the tech piece. And what teaching does, it develops your ability to work with people or take very complex concepts and be able to make them understandable for people who are non-technical. So I just combined those the interest in tech and that capability with people, and what came out the back of that was originally a web design business. So I started it in Thailand, employed 3 developers in Thailand, and moved back to the UK on a wing and a prayer to try and sell some website work. And we built up from that point. But it was very much about a love of technology, a love of working with people, and combining those two things. And that was nearly 10 years ago. 10 years ago next August. So we're 9 years old. Yeah.
So still quite early for sort of websites, really. I started helping people with online marketing in sort of 2008-9, and I've found some slides a while ago of me convincing people how important a website was.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly it evolves.
Yeah,
because I look at what we were doing back then, and we were very, I wouldn't consider ourselves a software company back then. we were doing the very minimum to kind of get people where they needed to be.
Yes.
Whereas now we're very much a solutions business now. It's like someone recognizes an opportunity, or they think they know why they want to do something, and then we come with very much the how are you actually going to achieve that, and what you're actually going to get out the back of it. Much bigger business and bigger kind of mindset than what we had in 2011, which was very much like, oh, you're a hair salon. Well, you definitely need a brochure site and an e-commerce site to be able to sell your products.
Yes.
Very different.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did that evolve? Because again, when you described what you do at the beginning, I wouldn't have automatically thought about websites as a sort of starting point for it. Now you've said it, it sort of is connecting up. But how did that develop in the 10 years?
So, I mean, honestly, it was probably down to where I had my knowledge base. Mm-hmm. So because I came from a front end development, a little bit of back end, but front end development position. So I preferred the creative side of things. So I just understood it. And if I understood it, therefore I can sell it. And that was why we started there. I always had a passion for much bigger systems, but didn't really have a knowledge base to be able to go and say, okay, I want to go and integrate with, massive Microsoft systems or banking software. I can't go and do that, or I couldn't do that at that point. So I fell into it from a passion and an interest in website development, I guess. And how it's evolved from that to now is just a lot of learning, a lot of exposure to different people and different things that they want to achieve. And ultimately, if you're quite a creative person, you understand how things work in the technical space. Someone comes to you with a fantastic idea, someone comes to you with an opportunity. You can see how software can solve that, and people will come in with bigger ideas. People will come in with ideas that were quite innovative, and then it was a case of how can technology facilitate, enable that business to market. And we just, our client base just diversified. We were very much into startups out the gate, and startups are looking to build businesses, not just a website. So we built marketplaces, like an online marketplace, like Not on the High Street, very similar to that. We built the first MVP of Bloom and Wild, the flower delivery company. So we kind of helped Aaron and Ben get, for their first 6 months, get to market. And that was the thing that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the concept around the commercial side of it and the business side of it, along with the tech and along with the human part. And that just led to business building. And that's kind of where we transitioned to in 2016, when we became more of a, we work with startups a lot, we work with these corporates a lot, but it's to build new product and take it to market. So it's not just guns for hire, it's not just engineering, it's not just design. It's like, how are you going to do that as a business? What are you looking to achieve, and how can we help? And then, by the way, we can also build it. So it's sometimes quite difficult to articulate. We're actually going through a positioning piece now, but it's very much about the how. Great, you want to do that, why you want to do it, but how are you actually going to go about it? And the what out the back is it an application? Is it a website? Is it a platform? Is it a mobile app? The what is the what. It's the how is the important piece for us.
And do you then work outsourcing some of that because it's potentially stuff that isn't in your experience, or is that something that you develop as you go? So
no, it's all internal. We have partners. So the partners that we link in with very much around copy, content. So a business called Callium. We're very close to Doug at Callium. We have Lua at Greengage, who does a lot of our technical SEO. We have who's Fabio, who do a lot of our kind of upstream kind of idea assumption validating. So we tend to work with friends and partners who can kind of support what we're trying to do with inside of the broader ecosystem. But in terms of what we do, it's service design. So it's like, what is this service going to be? How can we help you do that? It's engineering, so the actual physical build, and there's also production design. So the UX, the UI, how does it look on screen? How does it look on mobile? And then everything else around it is very much partnership driven.
So what you described sounds really quite sophisticated and quite although you talked about it being for you the natural thing to do, having been in teaching. I'm not quite entirely seeing that direct link. It must have been an interesting transition to go, because not only from education but education to education, and we sort of always smile a bit at people who've been to sort of school, university, then become teachers, and for the rest of their lives are still in the same environment really that they've been in the whole time. But you've got, you're in a completely different environment, and it's a really fast moving, creative environment, which to me doesn't sound like, what an average teaching person would be doing. What sort of transition for that was there for you personally, in terms of how you work and you said you were quite entrepreneurial, but it's still quite a big change.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose when you've gone through it yourself, and over such a period of time, we don't necessarily recognize it.
No.
But I think to begin with, there are just, business comes down to people, it comes down to relationships, and it comes down to partnerships. That's ultimately at the core of what business does. Yes, you've got to have a good business model. Yes, you've got to be commercially savvy. You've got to understand finance, operations, all of the sales and marketing, everything else like that. But it comes down to people. Do you have an ability to relate to people, your client? Do you have an ability to lead a team, and therefore, bring people's careers through, sell a vision, make sure people follow you? And that's ultimately what teaching is. That's what teaching's skill is. You're leading out, you're passing knowledge on, and you're getting people to, follow a lesson, for example, or kind of, the curriculum set, and you've got to distill that, and you've got to translate that to somebody. It's a very similar skill initially. In terms of like where we are today and my capability now, that's just filling skills gaps. That's just learning on the go. When we first started, Dad founded the business with me before Ben, our COO, joined. And we were, it's the classic up in my old bedroom, we've got, $5,000 to bootstrap this business together. And we, everything from pricing, never written a contract before, didn't know how to do sales and marketing lists or a pipeline, had no idea about PAYE and how to set up all the financial side of stuff. So we just dug in, and we just got on with it, did a lot of learning, a lot of talking to people. And, ultimately, if you can sell, if you can do that, if you've got a business model that works and people trust you and you deliver, then the business just goes and it evolves. So I think I was just very open to development. I was very keen. I had a massive desire to make sure this thing was successful. And that means with that, I just put in the hard yards. I've worked 7 days a week for 2 years, and I just got stuck in.
Yeah. And on the plus side, fewer stroppy teenagers, I would imagine.
Yeah. Do you know what? For the first 2 years, I really missed it, because I went from, in Thailand, it wasn't a very big school, but I probably taught 200 or 300 students. In England, there must have been 600 or 700. So I constantly had all these different personalities around me, and some of them were, tricky, but some of them were fantastic. Great people to spend your day with, teaching them and listening to them, made you laugh, a lot of them. And then I went from this experience in Thailand, where it was like the camaraderie of the staff and the fantastic students that we had out there. And I came back, and it was me and my dad in my old bedroom. And it was just, I was like, wow, okay, so no one's telling me, there's no diary that I have to follow. There's no lesson structure. There's no like, I've got year 9s now, I've got year 11 there, I've got A level there. It's a case of your day is blank, go and create. And you've got to create almost on your own.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It was a strange transition. I really struggled for about a year to feel as though I was doing anything tangible. I was like, what am I actually doing? What am I actually doing here? Yeah, I'm writing this stuff down. Yeah, I go and talk to those people. But it wasn't like there is an end result out the back of it, because it's so delayed. So I had to go through, mentally, I kind of had to shift my mindset about how I viewed it. But it was quite lonely to begin with.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
Very different kind of job.
Yeah. So apart from, I think, Andy Lapata, who was on the show a few months ago, I don't think I've spoken to anyone else who's worked with their dad or a member of their family in that way. How did that come about, and how did that go? Talking about stroppy teenagers.
No, yeah. So Dad and I have got a good relationship. He's definitely the person I vent to. He's that kind of, if I'm going to lose my mind at anyone for 20 minutes, it's invariably been Dad over the years, which, is not fair or fantastic, but sometimes you've got to vent somewhere.
Yeah.
He's got a really interesting background himself. So he did a PhD in biochemistry, and then worked in chemistries for 20 years, and then went into financial services and became an independent financial advisor, and then did this and this and this. So he had a really kind of broad kind of grounding and understanding of how things work. So he just handled all of the financing for me. So that was a great thing. I set up all the company for me and made sure we'd had all of the invoicing and everything else like that done. So that was Dad's role as finance director up until last year. So he did 8 years of it. and not trained in that respect, but just kind of got the business moving in that way and did what he could to do it, and has never asked for anything out of the business. In terms of the relationship, I mean, it's been good. It's my sounding board even to today. It's, if I've got an idea, I'll go to Dad and say, look, this is what I'm thinking. Tell me if you think this is rubbish or not. And Ben, my co-founder and COO, he's the same way. It's like the checks and balances people that you need. Yes. When you're a bit of a dreamer, which is kind of what I'm like. It's like, guys, got this idea. Tell me if you think it's rubbish or not. So there have been some tense moments. I think we had a really tough time in 2016 financially, which was very hard on both of us. And that was quite fraught because it's family at the end of the day. And when you can see that you're both stressed, take business out of it. If you've got a son and a father who are both emotionally affected by what's going on, it can cause damage. Thankfully for us, it wasn't long term, and we shook it off and we got through it together, and it's pretty peachy now.
That's good to know. Good to hear. So you mentioned that when you first started, you were working sort of 24/7, 7 days a week. How did that change? Because it's the sort of thing that some people, you start doing it because you need to do it, but actually it's really hard to stop doing it once that's been something that has been your sort of norm.
So it was the weekends, which was the thing. And I remember, I think I was talking to a girlfriend at the time, and she wanted to go to a National Trust property or something. And I was, 4 hours in at, midday saying, I've just got to get this stuff out. She said, if you carry on doing this, it will never stop. You've got to take control of the situation. So just say on those, when that comes in, either don't reply or reply, I'll get to this Monday. So I just started to do that over time with everyone who had these requests. And within 2 months, I didn't work a weekend on client work. I still work weekends every now and then on the business because it's a passion. But I stopped working those weekends on client work, and clients accepted it. They accepted it, and it became okay. And I got some time back for myself.
Yes.
If I do feel though, if I hadn't have put in those hours, and I'm not saying every single one of them was effective, because it's not always at a computer. Sometimes it's like, I'm going to go for a walk for 3 hours and think. But it's still work.
Yes.
But it's that balance now more important than ever. I don't work now beyond 6 p.m. or I try to not. Start at 7. First meeting's at 7, but finish at 6. I'm not saying it's solid work, but those are my hours. And if I go beyond that, I'd prefer it to be a social thing, like a glass of wine with people at work afterwards. And I try, and I don't work on client work during the weekend. If I do anything on a weekend, it's only like to drive MOHARA forward as a business.
Yeah.
So you've got to have balance. But I pulled myself out of it from advice from the ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. And through seeing the importance of boundaries and saying no, I guess.
Yeah.
As you say, it was a iterative process. It wasn't a right, I'm not doing it anymore. It was a how can I change what I'm doing? So that
it was over time. Yeah, it was 2 months, and after that, it just didn't happen. It's never really happened. And now they have, and now it's like if something comes in, and we tell our teams as well, because founders, particularly startup founders, are quite demanding because this is their baby, right? And they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
So we say to the teams, it's like, look, just put a hold in there, put an acknowledgement, say thanks for this. We'll get to this first thing Monday. Because otherwise there's that expectation. You're setting a precedent, and they will just go. Yeah. And it's nonstop. And when you've got 3 or 4 of them, your weekend's gone. So you draw a line and you be firm about it, firm and fair, and people respect boundaries. Like you said.
Yeah. And how do you ensure that 6 o'clock stop? Have you got any sort of strategies for it, or does it just happen now?
Well, I don't put any meetings in beyond that point. That's the start. Though the US with the time zone is proving a little more challenging. So we'll see how I navigate that, because that's our next piece, is how do we handle a business that spans 18 hours?
Yeah.
So other than that, I just try to be fairly strict with my time. I mean, like I say, the stuff that is after 6 p.m. tends not to be client related. So it might be myself or Ben or Etienne or Martin or Patty or someone senior within the business getting together to discuss stuff for the benefit of MOHARA rather than client work.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing for me is, I'm okay with that. The last Thursday, I worked through to 8:30, but it was on, our plans for resourcing, really important, chunky piece of work. And it was great. And we all got a beer out and we talked through it and we thrashed through some ideas. That doesn't feel, to be fair, most of this doesn't feel like work to me. and which I'm fortunate of. But
yeah,
I think just it's the boundaries again, with clients, just making sure that, you put those things in and you do your best to stay to it. It's not every day. Some days are actually quite quiet with meetings and I get to have a more of a relaxed, chilled day. Some days are full. But it's just making sure that you strike a balance so you don't become burnt out. Because we average around 50 to 55 hours a week, something like that. Any more than that, I'm just not sure if people are that efficient.
no,
I think, and then it's almost like throwing good money after bad. It's like throwing good time after no time. It's not. I don't see the benefit in it really at the moment. Things might change.
yes, yeah. And have you seen changes through lockdown in terms of sort of productivity and how you manage what you do? I mean, we're recording this quite ahead of it coming out, so who knows what will be happening in February.
Hopefully we'll be out.
Hopefully we'll be out. But what changes have you seen, or have you seen changes? And I suppose in some ways you might be feeling like you're back to starting again because you're near your bedroom again when you're working.
Yeah, I mean the first lockdown was tough, really tough. I mean I had some personal things to go through as well. But it was very, very challenging because I'm people orientated. I get energy from people. I love being around the team, and that's when I'm probably most effective.
Yeah.
So to go from that to 12 weeks without seeing anyone I knew was very, very challenging for me, very taxing. In terms of the work rate, I wobbled I wobbled after about week 4. Of it. So I was kind of like really dedicated, kind of like, this is fine. I was getting up early. I was doing the usual thing about trying to do some exercise and then getting showered and dressed and all the rest of it to try and turn it into a working day. And our days start early because of our team in Thailand. So, the day is going from 6 a.m. So you can tap into that, quite quickly. So I was okay for the first month or so. And then I think it just became labored and, from a mental health standpoint, I struggled with it, and I was doing, my days were getting a lot longer. So I would find myself, going to bed at 1 a.m. and getting up at like 6, 7, and I just became tired and I couldn't sleep, and lots of impact. But, in terms of the business, we didn't miss a beat, thankfully, because we're distributed. I definitely wobbled, but, as soon as I had a word with myself and got exercising again and things like that, I just stayed mentally a lot fresher. This one is a cakewalk. Honestly, it's fine. I'm so used to being on my own now.
Yeah.
That it's, I get up, I try to do a bit of exercise every day in the morning. I bought myself a piano because it's just a complete escape. I play the drums as well, so that's a good one if I'm feeling a little bit frustrated. And I tend to go out and walk and take street photography as well. So anything that kind of draws me out of what I do. Is the best. I don't need much of a reset. Half an hour, 20 minutes here or there, and then I can be back into it. But its focus was definitely a challenge in the first one. I have good days now and bad days now. I think everybody does, particularly because it's every day is the same. But it's, this one's a hell of a lot more productive for me. I'm a hell of a lot happier this time than I was before, because I think ultimately I've adjusted somewhat to this style, this lifestyle.
Yeah, I think the first one was the first few weeks particularly, I felt a bit shell shocked. I couldn't quite get my head around what was going on. And I was only thinking this morning that I'm actually quite an introvert, so I don't need to be going out and meeting people, and I meet people a lot through this sort of means anyway. So I'm really comfortable in this environment, but I just keep sort of occasionally thinking, it's really odd. It's so odd to not really go anywhere and not really see anyone, but still be quite happy. It's
yeah. And see, I'm the opposite. I'm a stonewall extrovert. I like to be out there and doing it, and it made me feel I felt as though I wasn't getting any satisfaction.
Yeah.
But then again, what happened from that is that I ended up connecting with friends all over the world from everyone that I've met, and our friendships developed because there wasn't that immediate intimacy with my current friendship group or my nearshore friendship group. So it was a really weird one, but it was a challenge for sure for me, and I learned a lot. But this time, like I say, I'm really quite content, really quite happy this time through.
I think the piano thing was genius as well. I keep laughing, saying that my piano playing has improved massively since lockdown because I've played nearly every day, and I keep going, who knew? Actually practicing makes you better.
Makes perfect, yeah. I know, right? I know it's only half an hour a day, isn't it? And I've come from a complete beginner. I bought a nice weighted piano off eBay just before lockdown hit, the weekend just before. I thought, right, give myself half an hour. And through the first lockdown, I was really quite pleased. And it's just a lovely escape, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a great escape, and it's calming.
Yeah.
Unless you're going through some boogie woogie, it's quite calming.
Or playing it really badly, and then it's a bit jarring. But other than that, it's fine.
Stick to Fairleys or stick to Moonlight Sonata, you're fine. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, what about getting things done yourself personally? As in, how do you manage those tasks? How do you make sure you get done what you need to get done?
Do you mean in a professional capacity?
Well, anyway, how do you organise yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not naturally the most organised person. I have to work quite hard at it. I am an admirer of process, but it doesn't come naturally to me. I'm more a case of let's just go for it, and we'll figure it out along the way. It's always kind of been my bit gung ho, I guess. So, I mean, in the professional capacity, I run a very tight calendar. So I make sure that everything is booked in there. I make sure that everything is structured and I can see what I'm doing. In the last 3 months, I started to book in time for kind of free tasks, if you will. So tasks that I want to work on the business that I know I need to get done. So I put in some time for work on the vision and the strategy of the business. Instead of saying, I could just wander around thinking about it, I've got a dedicated hour that I try to stick to. Yeah. There's ideas around what we're going to do in 2021, how we're going to expand the US, all of these things that I should be thinking about to work on the business. I put dedicated time in, which I never used to do. I don't kind of put in things like lunch or life admin or anything like that. And the life stuff around the edges, I just plod through it. I'm kind of, I just kind of do it as and when I can. I'm not particularly highly strung as an individual. My place doesn't have to be absolutely spotless or anything like that. I just kind of drift through feeling pretty content about stuff, to be honest. But with the work stuff, my calendar drives it completely. Ben, like I say, Ben, my business partner, he cleaned up the way I use Slack and taught me how to use that, because I had thousands of messages. I mean, I do have I'm just looking at my email. It's got 38,000 unread emails currently. So things like that don't necessarily bother me, but I know there's nothing in there that I need to get to, and it just ticks along merrily. And I don't let it bother me so much. Just as long as I can have an efficient day, I can get the stuff that I need to get done and end the day with a smile on my face. I'm pretty content.
Yeah. So a few things in there. I love getting people on who talk about thousands of emails in their inbox, because that makes me come out in a cold sweat. But I know some of the people who listen will be really pleased to hear that, because they feel like their inboxes are sort of rather out of control, and that makes them feel good. So thank you. I love your admirer of process comment. Yeah. Commendable. And a reflection again about lockdown. The bit you were saying about building in, particular time to do those important tasks or the reflection tasks. I think that's one of the things that has been a positive for many of us. I think we've finally found the time to build some of those things in that we've probably been able to avoid or ignore whilst we've been so much more frenetic, I guess. But as things have had to calm down, for me, it's the same. I've found some space to do things that I've been wanting to do for ages, or I've been thinking I should do, and actually now I am doing, because I've found that opportunity, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, completely. I mean, I during the day, other than my team that I work with and friends on WhatsApp groups, I've got very little distraction. And because I don't have children, I live alone. It's I find myself with that time, and if I get frustrated if I don't use my time efficiently. Yeah. Because you've only you lose that day, you lose that week, you're not going to get it back, and therefore you've missed an opportunity to push the business along, or push what go along the journey to that goal that you wanted to do. I do get frustrated when certainly in the first lockdown, I was like, wow, I've just drifted today, and I've drifted because of what was going on, and that the whole mental impact of what was happening. But I feel as if if I don't get something good out the back of the day, if I can't think of actually a fantastic comment I saw from one of our interns that's joining the South African team. Her name's Chelsea. She said, I like to end the day and I like to think about one thing that I can be proud of today. And I just thought that's really neat. So I like to be able to now, and thanks to Chelsea, she doesn't know that, she'll hear it in February. At the end of the day, is there one thing that I can say, yeah, you know what, I did something good there so that I haven't wasted a day?
Yes.
Because it does, I mean, it does frustrate me when I've just drifted, and it's very easy to drift in this current scenario, particularly when you've got, you know, there's no family, there's no friends around. It's like, maximize your opportunity, Rich. Keep going. But I do have those drifting days, and they do frustrate me.
Yes. I think that maybe that's another learning we need in this. That I mean, like yesterday, for some reason I was feeling really fed up, and I just thought, you know what, I've just got to do something else. You know, not worry about the things that I thought I ought to get done today, and actually just do something else that makes me feel better. And then tomorrow will be a new day, and all will be fine again, sort of thing.
And I've done that a few times. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I just really couldn't get my head in the game. It was the first week of lockdown, so maybe less than 2 weeks ago. So I spent the afternoon mapping out a 5-year plan for where I want the business to go, because it wasn't client related, and it wasn't like HR related, and it wasn't immediate. So I could just kind of sit back and just, I don't know, get deep into that kind of fun thinking. And I felt at the end of the day feeling fantastic.
Yes.
Because I couldn't necessarily engage in the day to day, but I still got something out the back of it that I really enjoyed. And I went for a 2.5 hour walk the other morning, just because I knew I needed to start the day, and I knew I needed to get the energy out. So I went for a long walk, spoke to my dad, spoke to people in the business, thought a bit, took some photos, and I came back and had a smashing afternoon. That morning I knew was going to be a write-off for efficiency. So I just thought, you know, sod it. I'm off. I'm going to go and walk to the marina. And it was great. And it was the best thing I could have done. Yeah,
I think some of those times what I sort of refer to as productive procrastination. So I don't feel like doing anything that I have on my to-do list, but I find something else to do that is still useful and moves something forwards, but wasn't perhaps anywhere near the list of priorities, but actually does move things forwards, as you say, that planning that you did.
Yeah, I mean, and it was fantastic, and the walk was great as well. You know, things that I came up with the walk, just listening to music, getting some exercise, because I knew that I could work through to 8 p.m. that night. So I knew those 2 hours that I took in that point of the day, I knew I wasn't needed by the business. I could go and do it, and I came back and felt rejuvenated. So that time away, to be able to make the time you're in more efficient, is so important. I certainly find as me, that's why I've got a drum kit and a piano and everything else. It's distraction. It's reset.
Yeah. What do your neighbours think of the drum kit, eh?
It's electric. They're headphones. Yeah, no, I sold my acoustic drums years ago. No, it's electric. Yeah.
So right at the beginning, we were talking about what your business does, and the word innovation came up, and you know, we talked about it being very much about creating. How do you make sure that you are learning and developing yourself as you go, so that you can, you know, be at the forefront of the innovation?
I mean, on a personal or professional level, I try to read a lot. I struggle with focus with books. Quite a visual person, so I tend to prefer video as a medium, or maybe audio. So I do try to read as much as I can, and I learn a lot from that. You know, and I think at the beginning of the business, I tried to learn a tremendous amount around the, you know, what would you study in an MBA? You know, quite a bit of the theory, even though I've kind of had an MBA in real life, I guess, just by learning what I've learned. Outside of that, you know, I tried to talk to as many peers as possible. You know, it's quite interesting that, you know, I went through a period of time feeling quite, I guess, out of sorts, or a little bit like an island, because within inside of the CEO role, it's kind of defined, but it isn't defined. You know, you're very much the visionary or the leader of the business, and I know it sounds cheesy, and everybody's kind of said it before, but you're genuinely on your own. You know, and if you could talk to people in the business, but either they're integrators, they're people that do things, and more important really than that visionary role. But if you can't necessarily engage with someone around what you're trying to go to, it's quite tricky. So, you know, I've had business mentors in the past, you know, and they've given me direction and given me kind of, you know, movement forward. We're building out an advisory board for our startups, but, you know, I would definitely like, something I've been thinking about is getting a coach, you know, as we kind of transition into a bigger business and, you know, more of a global business, because, you know, I haven't done it before. You know, there are certain things, I've never guided a business through a pandemic before when COVID hit, you know, and we did it as a team, but I had to learn quick, sharp about communication. and we chose video as a medium and communicated every Thursday. And we have done that we've done that since the first week of lockdown.
Yeah.
And we had to talk about everything to do with, salaries, how we keep everybody employed, all of that kind of stuff. I've never done that before, didn't know that at all. So I just had to get on the phone to people, get advice. Like, how am I going to communicate with these 65 people, in Africa and Thailand and here, all affected at different times by the pandemic?
Yes.
And it was a hell of a learning curve to be able to do that. And I did that through discussion with internal people. So our leadership team are fantastic. So talking with them, talking to my dad, talking to my mates, and just saying, look, this is what we're thinking, this is what we're doing, what do you reckon? And just absorbing all of this information and then trying to position it as best I could. Yeah. So as though it comes from me in a very sincere way. So, you're forever learning. I'm always open. I'd like to think I'm coachable, but it's just through experience. When you face the problems or you face something you want to do, you just got to go and read. You've got to listen to people. Got to go and talk to people as best you can to absorb as much information to give you the best chance of doing a good job.
Yeah, exactly. So last couple of questions. What about those days where it all goes horribly wrong? We've sort of touched on that already, but when you have a terrible day, what do you do?
Yeah. They you get a couple of those a month. Invariably around because we work with startups, is invariably around either people or cash crunch. Yes. tend to be the issues with us because of the very nature of an early stage business. When things do go wrong, it's interesting. What do I do? Back in the day, I would have probably kicked and screamed about it, and kind of a little bit of a pity possum, I guess, kind of like, oh yeah, this is so rubbish. Why don't we get any luck? Yada 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 at the beginning. I think nowadays I just kind of accept it as given, because there's no point doing that. All you need to do is just go, okay, that's what it is. That's the reality of the situation. How do we go and fix it? So I think for the last 6 or 7 years, that's been my mentality, is to take whatever problem there is head on and just go and fix it. What's the best solution? What's the fastest solution to go and get that sorted? And it can be a variety of problems with what we deal with, but it's not. I don't like to beat around the bush. I don't like to chat things over, ad nauseum. I like to just go. Let's make a decision, team. Let's just act. In terms of picking myself up, as a person, that tends to be half an hour to 45 minutes of really analysing the reality of the situation. Maybe go for a walk, maybe sit down, maybe have a glass of wine, and just reflect, let it wash over me. Try to not get wound up, accept any kind of emotions or feelings that I'm feeling in relation to that. And then ultimately I seem to come to the conclusion that, well, it's going to be all right anyway. This is going to be fine because we're going to sort this out. I do have an eternal optimism, which our chairman sometimes doesn't like. But I am optimistic as a person. I know that we've got really bright people in this business that will be able to tackle anything really. And that gives me a lot of confidence. So I just let it wash over and then, we fix it.
Lovely. Thank you. And then the last question, those days where you get to live more. So that's where I define it as getting to do more of the things that you want to do and less of the stuff that you don't want to do. What do those days look like for you?
I love doing it professionally. I love doing the big picture thinking, strategic work. I've done a lot of the in the weeds work over the 10 years that we've been in business. So I've done the design, I've done the product management, I've done the build, I've done that. What I really enjoy now is looking for opportunities to take MOHARA forward and working with our team to do that. That's honestly where my passion sits. I love connecting with people. So be that partners, the partners I mentioned earlier, love connecting with them. And I really enjoy business development. When I talk to a startup or I talk to a business that wants to do something, I get a massive kick out of finding a solution for them. They tell us the problem, what are they looking to do, and then being creative with a solution, thinking about how can we go and solve that for this business? How can we go and take that forward? Those are my absolute three things. So it's very much about big picture vision. Where can we take this business? I find that tremendously exciting. I love working with, the people, the partners, and obviously the BD stuff. I really enjoy because it's like it's opportunity, right? That's what it is. I have been thinking about doing this in this space. Oh wow, this could happen. This could happen. This could happen. It's big picture again. So that's what a really good day looks like to me. I don't think I can have those 5 days a week because all I'd be doing would just be cooking up ideas all the time. So I I'm realistic that, I have to do other things as well. But that's what really drives me forward. Is that, and I think that's probably makes me in the right role for what I'm in, because that's the majority of that role.
That's lucky.
Yeah. Well, it's by design. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard. It's been so interesting talking to you today. Tell people how they can find out more about you and get in touch.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether you're going to be popping on the website on this, but people are more than welcome to drop me an email. It's just richard@mohara.co, and our website is obviously mohara.co, or find me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat to anybody if any of this is, been insightful or interesting, because you never know where conversations go.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Richard. Thank you for your time today.
No worries. Take care.
All this information is available in the show notes. If you go to powertolivemore.com / in this case 196, then you'll find them there. And this week, the topic within the broader theme of Simplify is visualization and manifestation. We talked at the Power to Live More Calm Gold Call this week about visualization and manifestation, and everything really from how some people see it as being very woo-woo, right the way through some practical tips in terms of thinking about visualizing success as the sports people do. So imagining really clearly the future and what it'll look like and feel like and smell like and all those other things to help you to sort of set your course towards whatever that vision is, right the way through to quantum physics, which we all acknowledge that we don't really understand. And we are going to go and investigate further. And we talked about whatever your view is, from whether you think that visualization and manifestation is sort of woo-woo, right the way through to the whole quantum physics explanation that, as I said, we didn't really or weren't able to share, that there is no harm in getting really clear about what you want your future to look like. And going back to the previous couple of weeks' topics around purpose and goal setting, there's no harm in getting really clear about what that future looks like, to give you, at least half a chance of going in the right direction and taking that journey, that really clear journey towards that future that you're looking for. So it was a really interesting discussion. We shared fewer resources than we normally would, albeit there were a few books that people were recommending. And I've since found a few TED Talks that I'm going to check out and share with my members once I've evaluated them. But it was a really interesting and in-depth discussion. And I think my sort of summary is that if it's good enough for athletes in terms of visualizing their success and getting better results as a consequence, then it's good enough for me within my business and my life. Next week's topic is getting back to the practical, very much so, and we're talking about decluttering. If you'd like to join one of the Power to Live More Calm Gold member calls, then all you need to do is sign up as a member. You can get my £1 trial for a month. You just need to go to powertolivemore.com / get calm and use the code my1trial, and that's with the number 1. And again, the show notes for this week are at powertolivemore.com / 196. And we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.